You're listening to Trust Talks and Digital Dives with me, your host, Joni Brennan, President of the Digital ID and Authentication Council of Canada. We feature industry leaders, policymakers, and innovators who power our economy and protect our data. Whether you're a technology professional, business leader, or just curious about how digital trust transforms our world, we connect you to the insights that matter. Let's dive deep into digital trust. Hello and welcome to Trust Talks and Digital Dives. I've got a fantastic topic today to share with the audience. We're going to discuss the role of decentralized identity and how we can enhance privacy and trust in that space. We're going to talk about how this model and how these technologies help to shape the future of privacy, security, and trust. And today we're joined by Darrell Geusz, who is the product lead for PingOne Neo of Ping Identity. Ping are a leader in the identity management and security solution space. And through this conversation, we're going to break down how decentralized identity helps to empower people and organizations and helps particularly organizations to comply with regulations while enhancing digital trust. So I hope that through this conversation we'll help to demystify a bit more on decentralized identity and what it means, and connect Ping's role in advancing this approach to explore and define the benefits for real world use cases that help people to get done the work that they need to get done. So thanks for joining us today, Darrell. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Joni. We really appreciate the opportunity to come and chat.
Amazing. So yeah, it's such an honor as in my role at DIACC to host fantastic conversations like this one. So first of all, our listeners can really span the range from kind of entry level to expert. So kind of as we get started and make sure that everybody's on the same page, could you help to define for this conversation what is decentralized identity, and how does decentralized identity, how is that different from what we might think of as traditional identity and access management models?
Sure. Yeah, the concepts of decentralized identity started emerging even before COVID, really. But for the last 20 years, whenever we're interacting in a digital world, we've been using an approach or an architecture called federation, where there's an organization that has a proxy in the sky, a server in the sky that holds our data and represents us whenever we do digital interactions, and is responsible for sharing that data out on our behalf. And so, these are trusted third parties, in effect, that are supposed to act on our behalf and share information for us. And of course, that may be after we authenticate or go through a process of proofing as well to be part of that arrangement, that model. So the decentralized model is really kind of giving the data back to the person, taking the account and moving it out to the edge. And we can use the traditional physical government IDs as an analogy for this. Like whenever we have a government ID, like a driver's license or passport, we carry it around with us. It has critical data on it. It's a secure document, and we can instantiate who we are and share that however we choose as we go through our life with those physical documents. So in a similar way, by moving the account out to the edge into, let's say, our smartphone or our tablet, we can now take our account with us wherever we go, and we can instantiate our identity. We can share attributes regarding our account, could be entitlements. We could also share other things, like things that demonstrate purpose, that we're supposed to be there today, like a work order. So we can carry these things with us and be able to present them. And so that's the main difference between what we're used to now and what's coming for the future.
Hmm. Yeah, and it is interesting to see the shift in the alignments between the the traditional federation model and this model. And I like how you described it as kind of these capabilities moving out a bit more to the edge, moving out more to the edge than in a traditional kind of circle of trust or community of trust. What would you say is the most significant? You mentioned a few features. What would you say is the most significant for your perspective,
Mhm.
of those differences between the two models, like what do you think is most significant for businesses and individuals? Is it that shift, or is it maybe like bringing your identity with you, or what do you think is the most significant for people to understand?
Yeah, I think for businesses, I think the most significant thing is that you can empower users, your constituents, as it were, to actually go to a lot more places and take their identity and information with them and do a lot more things. You can light up new use cases, even internally to your organization or with affiliates, business partners and that sort of thing. And you can do it in a way where you don't have to build any back-end integrations. Because in the traditional model of federation, or even APIs in the sky, you have to build these back-end integrations between each organization. And that's a lot of effort. You have to go through a privacy assessment, a security assessment. You got contracts. You've got to maintain all that. You've got to maintain those connections. And they're usually very specific to the use case. And unlike that, in a decentralized world, you can empower the user to present their credentials, as it were, their account, just about anywhere. As long as you have a lightweight memorandum of understanding or a lightweight legal agreement between a relying party and, let's say, the issuer of the credential, that's good enough. You don't need to build any backend integrations to light up the use case. So what that means is the account can be used in more and more places, even within your own organization, even in a closed ecosystem.
Mhm.
And even better is when you liberate that to be used with partners, business partners, affiliates, whether even if it's just to get a discount on coffee, right? You can light up coffee shops super easy without any backend integration.
Mhm.
So that is really important for business. And you also empower the user to both use this technology online for logical access control, but also in person, because the exact same credential you can use at a brick and mortar or at a venue when you're going through a e-gate or et cetera, right? With a kiosk. So
Yeah.
that really unifies and harmonizes the user experience for the individual. The exact same technology can be used in both places, and that makes our life easier,
Mhm.
simpler. We're not constantly context switching all the time
Yeah.
across all these different methods and modalities like we are today with online services and federation.
Hmm. Yeah. I love that you touched on too. It's about that digital, fully digital interaction and the what I would call maybe like the hybrid where you're in person and
Hmm.
you're kind of showing something. I think
Exactly.
that's a valuable one as well. Um, so in the context of this shift, this change in models, or I think that they'll coexist, the traditional models,
Sure. Definitely.
yeah, right, decentralized. But in the context of decentralized identity, what approach is Ping Identity taking to this
Mhm.
space?
Yeah, our approach is that the core, what we call the IDP or the core backend, that centralized system is still going to exist. Even if you're not warehousing data, all the data centrally in a directory, you're still going to need what we call command and control. You need to be able to put some guardrails on the data, getting it out to the edge, being able to do the life cycle management of these credentials that are in our wallets, for example. And so that central service still serves a real purpose. And like you said, for a long time, we'll be in a hybrid model. We'll be doing both. We'll have legacy apps that will not want to interact with wallets. So we think that the model of that centralized service is still going to be important, and probably authorization will become super relevant. So centralized authorization, managing the entitlements, eligibility, that will take a stronger role right as we introduce these decentralized models. And then, of course, standards is key. And so Ping's approach, in fact, we have a patent on this, is to basically support every standard and even be able to transform from
Mm-hmm.
one standard and flavor of standard to another. Because for a while, just like when Federation was brand new, you're going to have lots of different standards that are in
Yeah,
effect competing with each other.
yeah.
And our goal is to make that easy button for our customers. They don't need to worry about that. We take care of that under the covers, and in fact, we'll actually transform and be able to support as the user interacts with the verifiers, the relying parties. We can transform and support all different standards. So it's a standards plus approach. Adopt the core standards, have them available, but also add goodies on top such as the transformation, such as delegation, such as a trusted verifier, things that the standards are not yet addressing. So that's kind of our approach to getting this out there.
Yeah, it's interesting too, right? Like a lot of it's similar language and similar constructs. So you mentioned IDP, which in the decentralized space is more on what we call the issuer, and then
Exactly.
you mentioned the verifier, which is from the traditional space, the relying party.
Exactly. Yep.
So we've still got a commonality in those sets of actors. We're calling them some different things, but the I think it's interesting that you called out the importance that this brings to the authorization model, that the
Mhm.
shift brings to the authorization model. Would you say, and then kind of similar, how, so how specifically is, well, you mentioned Ping has a patent or is taking a very
Mhm.
specific approach to support all the standards and all the things in the ecosystem. How would you say the Ping identity approach is working to help organizations and users, particularly on the navigating? Is it on that authorization side, or how are you helping to make that shift easier?
Yeah, I'll give you one example. We've created in our backend platform services, we recently acquired ForgeRock not too long ago, so we have a backend platform there that's used all over the world. And then we have a platform called Ping Federate, which is the single sign-on, the legacy software side from Ping. And then we have our SaaS, PingOne. And in all three cases, we have wedges that allow any legacy application to start interacting with the wallet even though they don't know they're talking to a wallet. It's really nice. So from their perspective, it's just another federated experience. But from the user and the issuer side of things, it's the decentralized model.
Right.
So there's a standard called SIOP v2, SIOP, that allows the wallet to look like what's called an OP or an IDP in effect to the application. And so we can light up even single sign-on with these new credentials and wallets literally by just turning on this wedge adapter
Hmm.
connector.
Hmm.
And suddenly those applications can start talking to wallets and they
Yeah.
don't even know they're talking to wallets.
Yeah.
So that's pretty neat. And so that's an example of we're creating segues or migration paths
Hmm.
so that these applications don't have to build anything net new
Yeah.
and and still take advantage of the security and the usability and the portability of these of the decentralized world.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You know, I love this so much. There was another conversation recently in LinkedIn about fragmentation, and I'm a big believer personally in the power of in recognizing that fragmentation is part of the ecosystem. And one thing that I personally think is key is building those safe passage bridges. So what you're talking about on these wedge pieces is so powerful because we're not going to have a system of one model necessarily.
Right.
Maybe we will, but I don't know. I don't know if we'll see it in our time. So those connector pieces are so incredibly important for getting the for the implementation and having the tools out there and capable. Well, that's great. So it sounds like a great strategy that you're taking. And let's kind of go back a little bit to so we talked about the shifts, the models and the shifts and what Ping is doing. And one thing that you mentioned in terms of the decentralized identity model is that people or organizations would have more control over data about them. Um, this is definitely one of the big promises of this sovereign identity or decentralized identity ecosystem. So, what particularly steps is Ping and the Ping Identity Solutions taking to help people to help with this control and get them kind of used to that or understanding that newer landscape of being able to control data?
Sure, sure. Well, we're of the belief that in some cases, issuers need to remain in control of the attributes and the credentials that they issue out, and maybe even have a copy on the back end because of regulatory reasons or what have you. But there's also the model where certain data, it doesn't really make sense for the organization to keep it. and just push it right out to the edge to give to the user. So
Mm-hmm.
we have APIs or we have controls that allow both models where you can do a proofing event, for example, and instantly derive a credential and just push it right back out there. And you don't have to store anything if you don't want to
Mm-hmm.
related to that proofing event or the data that you collected from the individual. And
Mm-hmm.
then we have other models where it's hybrid or even everything's copied on the back end as well in a directory and kept fresh by refreshing the credentials. So we have both models depending on the use case and the market sector and the auditors, the regulatory requirements, we can satisfy both. I'll give you an example. One retailer is a large fast food chain revealed that they don't really want anything more than just an email address. And so they're very seriously looking at how they move everything else about a loyalty program to the edge,
It's
right
good.
into that credential. And there's no need for them to have anything else. And of course, they're going to add things like food allergies and your favorite foods, and they hope to have even in person in the brick and mortar a beautiful VIP experience when you walk into order, so that the menu items with peanuts will never show up because you have a peanut allergy, right? And so the kiosk will be personalized. Your menu will be personalized. So things like that can be done, and then their food coupons, they're going to also be in the same wallet. And you can now, with delegation, you could share your free food with your family. So if you got three free sandwiches, you're never going to eat them. So give them to your spouse instead, your partner, right? So things like that they're looking at. But in that case, they're willing to get rid of all the data on the back end except email for marketing purposes, right, as an index, and everything else goes out to the edge. Of
Yep.
course, banks, it's the opposite.
Right.
Banks, because of regulatory reasons, they love credentialing and what we're doing with Neo, but they have to keep everything in the back end as well. Even the proofing events and even the photos of the IDs to be able to, in case there's fraud and to prosecute, for example. So
Right.
we have the full spectrum, and the key is making sure we're flexible enough in the platform and the product to accommodate both scenarios.
Yeah, and I think something underlying that great detailed response is the there are features or details around this model, just like any model, that have to be set by authorities and by policy and
Hmm.
governance. And so thinking about the differences between government issued credentials versus
Right.
you're a member of the community baseball team or something,
Exactly.
there's definitely a big range of differences in the kind of policy that's aligned to those spaces. So, um, would you say that it's interesting, right? With such a range of different kinds of credentials, are there some common privacy and security benefits in there, even across the very different range of credential types and uses?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I always call it the three C's: choice, control, and consent are built into the architecture. So a lot of people forget about the consent piece. With
Yeah.
rules, I know Canada has a really strong privacy laws, GDPR in Europe, for example.
Hmm.
This model is more attuned to privacy laws because it's kind of like GDPR on steroids. The consent is all built into the way the process works. You have to approve in the process that can be
Yeah.
recorded even as a digital signature. And so that alone, the fact that the architecture lends itself to make sure that you are in power of your data and
Hmm.
where it's going, you know exactly who you shared it with, right? It's not like something's happening up in the sky that you don't know about, right?
Yeah.
So that's a really good privacy factor. Security wise, what we're seeing is that, and I don't know if you've been noticing in the news, but some major news outlets brought out that APIs now in the Federation are under severe attack.
Hmm.
We have adversarial AI now that's gaming these systems. They're trying to figure out the vulnerabilities and configurations of systems to try to get in and get accounts. And so there, our APIs and our federation in the sky, they're huge attack surfaces, and they're under heavy, heavy, heavy attack, and the fraud is going through the roof. So by snipping the wire in the sky and rerouting it through the wallet, you frustrate the hackers because at that point you have double cryptography involved. It's very secure. You can't take the credential out of the wallet and put it in another place and try to replay it. Even if you have a rogue verifier and you try to get the data out, you can't repackage it, right? Because you don't have the signing key from the issuer. So there's some real security benefits. And when we sit down, we love to sit down with CISOs. And in the beginning, they see the user experience, which is also amazing, usernameless and passwordless. They
Mm-hmm.
see that and they say, there's no way that's secure. And then we'll take 45 minutes and go through everything in detail and compare it to OpenID Connect and SAML, OAuth, all that stuff. And after the 45 minutes, they're like, holy crap, that is amazing. That's so much better. It's so much more secure. So, security wise, we can really disrupt the hacking and fraud that's going on. And we can create some really cool conduits through the wallet to move any kind of data you want
Yeah.
related to the person.
Yeah. Yeah. So you got the four C's. You got choice, control, consent in Canada. You got the fourth
There
one
you
there.
go.
I think you covered a lot here. I mean, it sounds like with the customizable or scalable, maybe another way to say it, with the person, the individual at the center of the control, at the center of
Yes.
the choice, at the center of the consent. Would you say that the decentralized identity model lines up pretty well and scalable and adaptable for privacy regulations? Like you mentioned
Oh, yeah.
GDPR, and others. Would you say it lines up well for the
Extremely well. Yeah.
reason? Yeah.
In fact, we have a bank in Europe, and I can mention them, Raiffeisen Bank. They have 12 different banks in 12 countries. And one of their challenges is, and it's both EU and non-EU countries, right? And one of
Mhm.
their problems is federation would never work. They could never connect these banks in a way to enable any type of interaction because of the different legislative policies in each jurisdiction. So their model is to even create open banking across the
Right.
border by doing the decentralized model. And now the regulators are like, hey, no problem. The person just virtually or physically
Yeah.
carried their information across the border.
Yeah.
So that's got consent built in the model, et cetera, et cetera. So you can see there they stopped the process of trying to connect all these banks together on the back end and
Yeah.
empower use cases that way. And they're moving towards now a decentralized approach.
Yeah. Well, you said the magic word use case, so
Yeah.
let's talk about use cases. And you mentioned banking. It sounds like banking is one. What industries are you
Yeah.
seeing adopting decentralized identity in your space?
Yeah. Well, there's no doubt the banks are the early adopters. And in fact, they're looking to even kind of merge payment with identity. There's
Mm-hmm.
going to be a convergence
Yeah.
where in one fell swoop, you're going to present your payment token
Yeah.
and your identity. You'll never have to type a credit card number ever again. You'll have your shipping address right there built into the credential,
Mm-hmm.
et cetera, autofill, yada, yada. So that's a big one for banks. So they're early adopters. We also have healthcare. In the US, we have digital health insurance programs that are starting to roll out. If you imagine having a digital health insurance card
Mm-hmm.
with your information on it, you can just present it, either online with telehealth or in person when you go see the doctor. And the user experience is good, and the providers don't have to make a phone call or key in any information. It's
Yeah.
all autofill. The exact copays are there built, right? So you can even have Epic identifiers built into the credential to route back to your record in Epic, things
Mm-hmm.
like this, right? So healthcare is a big one. We also see as well transportation and automotive. So we're
Yeah.
doing a big project in transportation with truckers,
Yeah.
ensuring that they're legit when they
Yeah.
go pick up their loads, that they've
Yeah.
been proofed and verified. And it's not because, again, you're greeting somebody you've never met them before. How do
Mm-hmm.
you know who they are? Are they supposed to be here today? Do they really
Mm-hmm.
work for that trucking company? So
Right.
the carriers need help to even reduce fraud. So that's an example. Even automotive, we have project in automotive where they're putting our technology in the connected vehicle app and they're tying it to digital car keys and
Mm-hmm.
also for test drives. So you get proofed that you actually have a driver's license and then you bring in your credential and digitally
Mm-hmm.
tap your phone or scan a QR code to check in to drive a car at a
Yeah.
test drive at a dealership. So that's another example. And the other one is workforce more generally
Right.
across all the different market sectors. Workforce and supply chain, we
Right.
see it's going to be revolutionized
Yeah.
because now the contractors can come in and they can be instantly verified, supposed to be here today. They got the
Yeah.
skill sets, they got the work order in the wallet, and let them go to work, right? So we think workforce and supply chain is really going to be changed.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that professional credential space as well. It may be unregulated, but also can be regulated and can be
Mhm.
regulated at jurisdictional level. So I think that that's a big one as well.
Yeah.
That, doctors, nurses, lawyers, engineers, all of those
Yeah.
qualifications. Yeah, that's a big space too.
Yeah,
Um,
we're starting to see multiple of our customers wanting to honor each other's credentials. It's pretty
yeah,
cool. So
that's great.
we coordinate the meeting and we just sit there and listen and they talk and they say, yeah, we can use it for this, we can use it for that. And we don't have to build anything integration wise. No, you can use it in. So that's cool to hear those be a fly on the wall and just listen to our customers talking to each other about sharing credentials and honoring them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that whole space too, it's like that very much copies what we tend to do in the non-digital world. I mean, how many times is it like, you know, your driver's license is for driving, but you show it all the time as a
Exactly.
ID. Your utility bill is for your utility, but you show that as part of. So, these patterns where there may be pieces of information, data, or otherwise that are issued for a specific purpose. We tend to find in society that they have use in
Sure.
other purposes, right, as well. So, um, so that's great. Lots of different areas, lots of different use cases. Are you seeing, and you had a nice happy path where you're bringing folks together and they're talking. Are you seeing challenges in terms of the that adoption for organizations? Are you seeing organizations with facing challenges?
Yeah, I mean, because anything new, it's first of all, an educational
Yeah.
process. So we do a lot of education. We even do like without our logo, we get 50 people in a webinar and we don't even mention our products or our name and just educate them on on what it is, the architecture,
Yeah.
the impacts, etc. So that's one is just learning it, right? Our customers need
Mm,
to learn it. And then the other challenge is that because it's like a Rorschach, like it can do so much. It can actually change your entire business process of how you interact
mm,
with your users and stuff. It can replace MFA, right? You can do
uh-huh.
all the same factors with biometrics inside
Right.
and PIN codes. And it's a better user experience than MFA and more secure. So it becomes like a Rorschach. And so everybody looks at it differently about what it
And
can
see what
do.
they want.
Yeah, what tactical things can this solve versus art of the possible? Everyone kind of agrees with the art of the possible. Oh yeah, it's inevitable, blah blah blah. But how can I use it
Right.
now? What's the and so
Right.
it's a challenge because you'll have five people in the room, they're all looking at it a different way on how what it can solve,
Mm.
right?
Right.
So
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Like it's kind of part of the benefit is part of the challenge as well in terms
exactly.
of it's everything and it's
New
nothing, or
architecture.
it's
Yeah.
Swiss Army knife of technology models. So and I heard some use cases, and you mentioned in one case one particular bank, but are there and you mentioned some sectors. Anyone else you want to shout out from your customers, your partners that are using decentralized identity, and particularly your Ping identity solutions?
Well, we have a new partnership with Swisscom, and they're going to be there's a conference coming up in Europe. It's a large conference
Yeah,
that one of the analyst firms put on in Berlin coming up in early May.
yeah.
And so there'll be some cool new projects and things revealed there. But
Is this
Swisscom,
Sorry,
I'm
is
sorry.
it EIC? Is this
Yeah.
EIC?
Yep.
We love the
Exactly.
European Identity Conference. They're good
Yes.
friends. Great, great.
Yeah.
Look for that
Excellent.
topic there.
Yeah. So it's EIC in Berlin, and so we'll be having a session there. But Swisscom is one of our new partners, and we're going to be really doing some cool stuff, including around the EIDAS2, the new wallets in Europe.
Yep.
We're already interacting with the Swiss wallet and being able to support that, and we're going to get some certifications done in
Hmm.
partnership with Swisscom. So imagine the ability to sign a mortgage, even to apply for a home loan, and do it with a digital credential as part of your signature, right? So
Right.
qualified electronic signature, they call it in Europe. So we're
Mhm.
doing some cool stuff there with them, and there'll be more details at the I conference revealed.
Okay, great. Well, we'll keep an eye out for that. And for people who are in the DIACC for our ecosystem, we'll be amplifying all that
Yeah,
news as it comes on, as it comes forward. So, we talked a little bit about some of the we talked a bit about the challenges and even just some of the uh that people are looking at decentralized identity as a Rorschach model, that it can look differently to different people, to different organizations. Um, what kind of work are there any other kind of misconceptions or challenges that you want to highlight? And how is Ping Identity helping organizations to start their journey in decentralized
sure, sure.
identity?
Well, I think the other thing is, everyone always raises the issue that, oh, what if they don't have a smartphone? Or what
Mm,
if they lose their smartphone? And so we have to go through
right.
all that conversation. And the truth is that I know like 95, 97% of the US population, they all have smartphones, right?
Yeah.
Kids, when they're 9, have smartphones, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know how much of a challenge it is sometimes, but certainly right now, most of the vendors out there focus on wallets that are in these mobile apps, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Or that they're part of the platform wallet,
Mhm.
So there needs to be more work done around what I'll call cloud wallets or an
Yeah.
alternative approach. It's still your data, still you're in control of it, but it might be hosted somewhere, and for you to interact with, somewhere trusted that you trust. So I think that's one that comes up a lot. Like, what about people that can't bring their smartphone into work? They have to use a Windows computer or whatever. So hopefully the other platforms like Windows and Mac OS will get wallets eventually too that we can leverage, right? So we'll see. But that's another one challenge to bring out. How do we get them started? It's usually a workshopping. Like after the general education, we'll look for use cases together. And so we've done this a lot where we'll do a workshop, even if it's like half a day or we prefer all day, but we can go through and really look at pain points for them and say, oh yeah, we can solve that tactically. Here's
Mhm.
how it would work. And then, of course, art of the possible is important because that's how you sell the vision to the management teams and to the board of directors and things like that. So, of course, we do work through some of those, the art of the possible, because it gets people excited about the technology being future proofed, right? But the tactical use cases where we can solve immediate problems, that's where we kind of zero in and demonstrate, ROI. We have a business value team that we use internally that work with our customers, and they're really smart at going through and looking at fraud or looking at costs, management costs, whatever it might be, and seeing how the technology can change those factors. So
Are those I would love selfish if there's any opportunity to see case studies out of those ROI sessions or those
sure,
value
yeah,
sessions. I think that's super fascinating. So if you have any links to share on that, let us know.
okay,
We'll include it in the
sounds good.
notes. But yeah. And also thanks. I'm so glad that we got to there was a couple times or through the conversation where I was kind of gonna say wallet doesn't even necessarily have to be a wallet, could be
Exactly.
secure
Yeah.
browser container or some
Mhm.
other
Yes.
container. So really glad that we got to that through the challenge space. And on the, like you said, many people do have smartphones, and so the coverage is going to be significant already
Mhm.
in that case, and then closing those gaps for other kinds of wallet
Yeah. Yeah.
instantiations. Yeah, no,
The
that
other the other thing we do is we show and explain how, the user doesn't even have to know they have a wallet. I mean, the
yeah.
technology can be used without instantiating it as a Rolodex of cards, as it were, right? Like, and we have customers doing that. They just use iconography,
Mhm.
right? And so you get the advantage of the architecture, you get all the benefits of it, but you don't have to instantiate it as a wallet per se, like we're used to with Apple Wallet and Google Wallet, right?
Right.
So that's the other thing. Sometimes customers are like, oh, I didn't think of that. Here I am. I got this preconceived idea
Yeah.
about the way it's instantiated. And so when we show that, they're like, oh, I get it. This technology helps me. It eliminates the OIDC problems on mobile, by the way. The
Mhm.
exception cases go away. I mean, there's a lot of cool tactical benefit to it that doesn't have to lead you to, oh my goodness, I got to pick my card in a list
Yeah.
and to share it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, totally. It's fascinating. Well, looking for, so I feel like we're touching a little bit into forward looking on like
Yeah,
concepts of what a wallet is or isn't, and it doesn't have to
yeah,
be the thing that we think of as a wallet. We've also discussed the that we are in a continuum, meaning that
yeah,
traditional IAM, I mean, SAML still exists, OpenID Connect still exists, and so we do live in this ecosystem with multiple approaches, so it's a bit of a continuum versus a flip of a switch. What do you predict or think looking ahead? What do you think is kind of going to be the next big
yeah.
thing in decentralized identity?
Yeah. Well, we think, the concepts of delegation.
Mhm.
So we've got two models that we're implementing. One is a self-service. So, for example, if it's a loyalty card and you want to share it with your cousin to go shopping this weekend for the next 3 days, you can just self-service delegate that out. The,
Mm,
the company doesn't care who's buying on your loyalty program, right? So
yeah.
that's all self-service and you're full control. We also have a delegation model where the original issuer says, well, wait a minute, I need to know who you're giving this to. I need
Mm-hmm.
to at least approve them or be aware of them as a user group, friends and family, whatever it might be, before you can give that credential out. And I might even want to control what you're allowed to delegate on that account, what they can do in their roles, right? So I think that's going to be powerful. And as we go to personal AI assistants, I think the right way to manage these agents and assistants out there, because now we're even getting agents of agents, like
Yeah,
assistants that are managing lots of AI agents to
right.
do something for you. The best way to control them, as in the sense of empowering them without them going crazy, is a wallet construct where you can delegate your access credential to the agent. You can control what they can do on the account. They can't change the shipping address, but they can buy stuff with the payment card, right? So I think that's going to be a big area, and we're already starting to work on this, by the way, with some banks and things, retailers, on how these agents could be better managed and be a attestation that they're not a rogue agent,
Well,
right?
it's like identity turtles all the way down, right? Because then
Yeah,
all the identity box is also then open for the non-human identity or the agentic identity and
exactly,
how authenticated is it? Yeah, so
exactly. So that's a big one.
yeah.
We think, and then I think the other thing too is as we start seeing these use cases, I think the in-person use case,
Mhm.
what we talked about, where you can
Yeah,
use the same credential online, but
yeah,
also use it as a digital ticket to get into a venue, a game.
absolutely.
I think that's another big area development. We have some contracts now where we're going to have to start building this with NFC tap,
Mhm.
Bluetooth, right, models like that
Yeah,
to be able to interact with e-gates and kiosks and turnstiles and all that. So that's going to be a big opportunity
yeah,
to be able to control and then maybe just cache it for the day or for the time of the event. Like I should be able to tell the venue, hey, I don't mind this facial recognition stuff, but I want to opt in, right? Like
right.
I want to tap my phone, and then when it says, "Would you like Rockstar mode?" I say yes,
Uh-huh.
and then you
Yeah.
cache my face for the next 3 hours during the game, and then you delete it
Yeah.
when the game's over. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So privacy preserving models like that, where you can still have these cool VIP experiences, but only for purpose fit and for
Yeah.
time, controlled time. So those kind of things I think are going to be really exciting to open up avenues for us to use these credentials all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah, and yes, and doing so in a very purposeful way with time bounding, as you said.
Yes.
So there are going to be reasons for those, and certainly like you think every time you go through an airport, you know that that whole place has tons of security and surveillance for a reason.
Yeah.
So by being in that space, that's part of it. So yeah, but if there are interesting around models that can deliver you benefit for
Mhm.
that type of authentication, um, with clear time bounds and
Mhm.
clear,
Yeah.
this is as long as it exists and things like
I
that.
One other one I want to share is full decentralized transactions. And when I say it, we showed this at ICE last year. We demonstrated the concept of a bank ID from your bank in a mobile app, and you go to a car dealership and you already have a pre-approved loan in your
Mhm,
wallet,
mhm,
and you have your credit score in your wallet. And
Mhm.
now you go to the dealership and you want to buy the car, you can actually transact the transaction directly with the wallet. So you could
Yeah.
share that pre-approved loan. The transaction can happen. The car dealership can issue a cred back in the wallet, and the
Mm.
loan could all be transacted through the bank app, right? So
Yeah.
imagine that. Wouldn't that be so cool to be able to walk into a dealership and they know exactly what kind of car you can afford, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Based on your pre-approval. So things like that really are neat. There's going to be use cases we haven't even thought of that's going to make our life really simple like that.
Definitely, definitely. And that, and that last one, it's like, I guess in terms of the what we were discussing on kind of how people perceive things or how they understand this ecosystem, one thing that I always kind of see when I have conversations too is like that it's really about thinking about this, thinking about this the space as a whole as a data ecosystem.
Yeah,
With different authorities in it, and how can they
exactly.
share that authoritative information, or how can the person share that authoritative information in the middle? So like you touched on one of the biggest, I would say it's an attribute, uh, that people are looking for in the Canadian ecosystem is the verified income,
Yeah,
and the
exactly.
legal authority is the federal tax authority. That said, the best case is to get that attribute from the authority. Maybe a next best case is if your financial institution can assert that on behalf
Yep.
of. So other ways of solving those challenges. But yeah, those types of verified attributes can have a ton of power
Yep.
when people are put in control of them and can share them, and cutting the fraud out of the space. So um this has been awesome, Darrell. Time always flies through these conversations. I'm so grateful to be in a place. I feel a privilege that I get to talk to the members of DIACC and kind of and connect and amplify their expertise in spaces. So we will, as a part of when we share this conversation, we'll include um, any links that you folks want us to direct people to. I know there's a lot out there, and Ping Identity has been in the business for a very long time, so you've got loads. But is there any particular resource or area you'd love people to draw people's attention to?
Yeah, I mean, we have a dedicated website for this. It's called neoidentity.com. So
Mhm.
it's pretty easy to remember. And that takes you to all of our resources. We have a playground for developers to play and that sort of thing. So that's been the main landing point that we've used.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And we'll also include for to direct folks like to your LinkedIn and other places if people want
Sure.
to connect with you there. Well, great. Do you have any last words of advice for people and organizations who'd like to get more involved in this
Yeah.
ecosystem? Any standards groups or anything like that?
Well, a couple things. There's a reason that the analysts have declared it transformational, Gartner and Forrester, because it can improve security, improve privacy, and improve the user experiences all simultaneously. And that's a rare event. And the
Mhm.
other thing I'll say is the train has already left the station.
Mhm.
Like, if you want to be on board, you need to figure it out. But you need to figure out, is this a threat or an opportunity to my business?
Mhm.
And you got to start doing things now. So I encourage everyone to look at POCs, workshopping, even if it's tabletop exercise, to really start getting your arms around this because it's coming and it's going out this year. Really is the first year you're going to see full use cases in production, right? With lots of users. So it's going to be exciting. And the EIDAS 2, of course, helps in Europe with the legislation around wallets, right? So yeah, that would be my last parting words is don't be afraid of it. You got to start deciding if you're going to be on the train.
Amazing. Thanks for leaving us with the inspirational words, Darrell. That's a wrap for today, for this conversation. So glad to have you aboard. I encourage people to get in touch with you to follow up and learn more about Ping and your One Neo solution. And thanks for joining us, Darrell. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll look for the big things coming, the big news ahead, from Ping Identity in the space. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your leadership, and we know DIAC's been on this for a while. You were one of the pioneers, and we really appreciate that leadership out in front.
Amazing. Thanks, Darrell.